Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to UrbanPro Live Masterclass. We are here with yet another interesting and informative masterclass for you. This is Sinchana from UrbanPro team, your host for today. Before we proceed further, I'd like to inform all the attendees and YouTube viewers that UrbanPro is India's largest and most trusted learning network with over 7.5 lakh tutors and trainers. Through UrbanPro, you can easily find highly skilled and trusted personal tutors and trainers for your learning requirements. Coming back to today's session, we're presenting an interactive live masterclass on improving your writing skills for IELTS. But before we kickstart the presentation by our speaker, I'd like to address our attendees and YouTube viewers that in case you have any questions during the presentation, type them into the Q&A box on your Zoom control panel. And for those YouTube viewers, you can drop your questions on the chat box. And don't worry about your questions, we'll bring them up after the presentation is done. So without further ado, let's welcome our speaker, Miss Nisha Goyal. Nisha is a certified and experienced IELTS training expert. Having over 13 years of experience, she conducts classes for spoken English, IELTS, personality development, career counseling for abroad studies, and much more. Nisha is popular among her students for her efficiency in rendering quality education that enables all her students to excel in their careers. So a warm welcome to you, Miss Nisha. We're thrilled to have you here. Over to you.
All right. So a very good evening to all my viewers here. My name is Nisha Goyal, and today I'll be conducting a session which is completely associated with improvement of writing models. So let us start. Before I start this session, I can see that there are two people who have already been into the list. It would be great if I would be hearing something from them. So just a small question that I would want to ask from all of you. Okay, so all of you, can you please give me a brief idea about your interest of IELTS? That is, uh, since you are looking for IELTS, can you please tell me that how many of you have already started preparing for IELTS? It would be great if you can type your answer in the chat box. Hello? Yeah. So, yes, I can have few answers over here. Okay, fine. So that is interesting that some people have already started preparing for IELTS. And let me just ask you some more information here before I continue with the same. So, of course, when you start preparing for IELTS, we very well understand there are different modules that are associated with IELTS. That is listening, reading, writing, and speaking, of course. But when we talk about all the four modules, there's one module that is always challenging for all of us, and that is what? That is called as writing module. So in today's session, I will be throwing light on what is writing. I'll be throwing some of the information on how to deal with this particular module in the more efficient way so that you end up getting good bands and you basically handle the questions more effectively and efficiently. So at the start on the screen, I'll be sharing some information over here. Wherever you find that there is some confusion, there is some problems that you are not able to understand, please feel free to put your comment or put your questions in the chat box. So let's start. So I'm going to share one file with you here. All right. So here, let us start with the session. Let me first of all give you a glimpse about this. So herein, there are few key points that I'm going to discuss one by one. The session would start with the discussion about the different type of essays that are there in IELTS. Seems to be similar for you. Every essay requirement looking on it, we start understanding them more. We start basically getting more information about them. Then only we tend to realize the basic difference between the different categories of essays. So today are the different types of essays that are there in IELTS. And then further on, we would be proceeding ahead with just one category of essays. After the discussion of the type of essays, I will be discussing some key points essays. Basically, in key points, I would be telling you that what is the duration of IELTS writing module. I would be telling you that what is the time, what is the word limit that is there. In addition to this, there are some more information that I would be giving you. Then we would be turning to the question framework. That is, if a question has been given to you in the examination, so how particularly that question has been framed. What are the different components of the question and how you should definitely start dealing with that. This writing module, or particularly essay writing, is divided into three parts, three stages. So let me tell you what are these three stages. The first stage is called as planning. So once I'll discuss with you the framework of the question, then I'll tell you what is basically this planning stage of IELTS. After discussing the planning stage, then I'll tell you how to write an essay, how to basically go with a particular format. And at last, with that, after completing the writing part, we would be doing the error checking exercise. That is, we would be doing a small exercise wherein we would be working on the different components, different parameters on which you have to basically rate your essay. So there are a few kind of essays that there are a few kind of errors that generally people make. So you have to make sure that you do not basically do those errors in order to give a better quality of your essay. At last, we would be discussing some of the common questions which are based on the same category. Finally, I would be happy to help you with all your questions. So that is what the sequence of our tour, that is basically this is the whole itinerary of the tour that I'll be conducting. So let us start one by one here. All right, so let's have a look on different kind of essays that are there in IELTS. The first category that we have here is called as problem solution. So basically, this is the category that I'm going to discuss. Before discussing on this category, of course, you also need to identify that how one can basically make out that I'm dealing with this category. So there are few identifiers, there are few keywords that you need to keep in mind in order to identify this category. Second category of essay writing is called as argument essay. I would definitely not be discussing much about this argument essay, but let me just tell you, if in case you come across this argument essay, how you can identify it. For that, you need to simply understand what is argument. Okay? So anybody in the group, do you have any idea that what is an argument, or what kind of statement can you consider as an argumentative statement? Okay. Yes. So definitely. When we talk about argument, basically argument is a statement that has got two sides of the coin. That is, there are some part of the people who agree to the statement, and similarly, there are few people. Okay, let me just fix it up. Yeah, just give me a moment. Let me find out where is the problem. Okay, Susan, just let me fix up the problem for you. I'm sure there won't be any problem anymore. All right, so I believe now it's absolutely clearly audible to you, all of you, and there must not be any noise or external distraction or disturbance. Yes? All right, great. Fine. So I was telling you particularly about this category of question, which was called as argument. First of all, let me tell you what is an argument. So you generally call argument as a statement which has got two sides, that is, which has got positive as well as negative, right? So the basic idea of identifying this argument is that you read the sentence carefully. Okay. And in the sentence, you would find such keywords such as, do you agree? or disagree. Okay, so whenever you come across these kind of words in the statement, you can easily make out that basically my question category is called as argument essay. The third category we have is called as discussion essay. Let me tell you what basically this discussion essay and how you can identify this category. For discussion essay, there is a small identifier which is called as discuss both the views and give your opinion. Right? Discuss both the views. That is, the examiner wants us to discuss on the given statement, on the given subject, and at last, we have to provide some of our own opinion. Okay. So this is basically the framework of this third category question, which is called as discussion essay. So of course, later on, I'll be conducting some of more master classes, which would be absolutely subjected to argument and discussion. But my today's session is absolutely about problem and solution category. So I believe we shall now kickstart with this category, what problem solution is. And I understand and I really want to know that all of you have been clearly listening to me. There is no distraction now or any kind of disturbance at the background. Yes, students? Okay, now let's move ahead. First of all, let's understand the different keywords that are there. So when we talk about the key points that are associated with essay writing, the first and the foremost thing we need to understand about essay writing is the total time which is involved here. So the total time which is given for essay writing is just 40 minutes. Most of the people consider that total 40 minutes is the total time for which we have to write on a particular task. But remember, it's not absolutely 40 minutes. Basically, it is being divided into three more stages. When, as a layperson, we start attempting a question, there are two more stages about which we are completely forgetful and negligent. So, in today's session, I would basically be discussing those two most essential stages which are important, and that would definitely help you in fetching the grade band, which is definitely required in order to basically filing your PR process or going for higher studies. So, I'll discuss about it later, that how to basically segregate this total of 40 minutes. But before that, let me tell you about the time frame, basically the word limit which is being involved here. So the examiner wants you to write a minimum of 250 words. Okay. That is, it is important, it is essential, it's imperative that you have to exceed this number of 250 words. So basically 250. What do you mean by 250 here? When we talk about 250, it clearly says that there are a lot of things that we have to consider while making even this concept of 250. That is, sometimes what happens while in the course of writing, we tend to repeat few of the words. Okay? For instance, if the question is about health, so definitely we'll be repeating health at least 6 to 7 times. Similarly, if the question is about crime, we will be repeating it multiple times. So in case if the question is about crime, you have to make sure that you do not have to repeat this word 6 to 7 times. Why? Now the question is why? Because if at all you would repeat this question, primarily it would lead to redundancy. And the second idea is that the examiner would not find it as a qualitative essay. Okay? So for this, they always make sure that when you're writing it beyond that limit of 250 words, the primary thing you need to consider is that do not repeat words many a times. They just count the word only once. That is, if you have written crime 7 times, this word would just be counted only once. Okay, so you're just wasting your effort writing it for another 6 times. It's better not to write it. Yeah. And this way, even if you have written a word limit of 260 words, you can understand those 10 words are already deducted because they are not counting those crime words. So you are falling under length. Clear? So that is the primary idea I want to basically deliver to everybody, that in essay writing, a minimum of 250 word is essential, but make sure sometimes when you are repeating a particular word, in order to compensate for that limit, you have to write at least a 280 word limit. Now, a very general question that most of the people ask me is that what should be the maximum limit? Or to what an extent shall I write on a particular essay? So you can, of course, write to the limit of 300 words, right? There are some people who are absolutely frugal in that. That is, they like writing 320, 340, or somewhere around. But remember, the more you write, you are somewhere compromising with the quality of your content. Let me tell you what is that. By here, when I talk about the quality of content, you can understand, every question, every subject has got some important vocabulary or some rich word, right? Similarly, when you talk about the ideas, to a limit, you would be able to depict it in the most wonderful way within rich vocabulary. But beyond that limit, you would start compromising with the content. So, for that sake, always make sure just make it to the limit of 300 words. Do not write much on that. Okay. So, I'm reiterating my sentence. What is that? When we talk about the word limit, what is the ideal word limit here we have? It's always 280 to 300. Don't write less because it would lead to penalty. Don't write more because it would lead to a bad quality and a complete atrocious content. Why? Because definitely you would not be able to maintain a good quality in the content. Probably the content would not be relevant, or probably the vocabulary would be repetitive. So I'm sure you all must be very much clear with this concept. Please tell me, say yes or no in the chat box. Great. That's wonderful, Akhila. All right. Okay, thank you, Manohar. That was really wonderful to hear from you. Now I'm moving ahead with the stages of essay writing. Yeah. So here I'm sure there must be different kind of participants. There are people who must be writing their examination very soon, or who must have been in a mood to writing it in just 1 or 2 months. So, but remember, there's one module that really needs a lot of practice. But people generally, they become negligent about it, and that is what is writing module. The reason is not that it's difficult. The reason is that it really requires some sort of basic things to be understood. And when you start understanding the things, it becomes a complete cakewalk for you. And when you basically ignore those things, believe me, it would end up, you know, becoming a pain in your neck. You would have to repeat your attempt at least 6 times, 7 times in order to just score a 7 band. All right. So here I'm just talking about the different stages. Listen to my whole content carefully. Wherever you feel that something is not understood, raise your question. I'll be happy to help you. All right. So every question is particularly divided into 3 categories. Yeah. Let's understand what these 3 categories are. The steps particularly. Planning, 5 minutes. Writing, 30 minutes. Checking, 5 minutes. Okay. So planning, the primary stage of essay writing. Okay. But before I proceed on to this planning stage, I would like to listen from you only. Let's say there's a question that you have received in the examination. Any particular XYZ question, right? So, what is the primary thing that you do with the question? Let's say, or I'm giving you an example. Yeah. The question is that internet is becoming a trouble for all the teenagers. Do you agree or disagree? Okay. If let's say this is my examination question, so what is the primary thing that you are going to do with the question? All of you, please participate. Yes. Akhila, would you like to answer, or Manohar? The first thing that you do with a writing question, what is that? Absolutely wonderful. You need to understand the question. properly. But what is the approach of understanding the question, right? That we are going to talk about. Okay. So planning is essential. Why? Because it basically helps us to give an opportunity to understand the question clearly and absolutely. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm first of all going to discuss the stage of planning more elaborately and more vividly. That is, there are further three steps that could be considered in this planning. And what are those three steps? Number one, reading the question. So, Akila, right now you told me that you understand the question. But that's of course, you cannot understand the question if you can't read it, correct? Am I correct, Manohar? Other people? Absolutely. Yeah, if you don't, that absolutely, Anjan, I can understand. Reading is something without which you cannot understand the question. But remember, there are many occasions, there are multiple, circumstances wherein even sometimes you read the question, still you end up writing an absolute bizarre or irrelevant content. So, in order to prevent that situation, remember there are a few key features that you need to understand about the first stage of planning. And what are those key features that I'll talk about it later. But the primary thing is, of course, in the first stage of planning, the thing that we need to do is to read the question. After you read the question, then comes the second stage, which is called as collecting the points. That is, when you understand the question, of course, you should collect some of the ideas about the question primarily. Okay. So in the IELTS examination, of course, you receive some of the blank pages, some of the rough areas where you can make some notes on what you're going to basically finalize in your content. So before you make a complete and an absolute final write-up, it's important that you make some preliminary notes on that, and that is what is called as the collection stage. The third one here is called as organizing. Yeah. So one by one, I'm going to discuss all the stages so that you become more familiar and clear about this concept. All right, so let's start. The first stage, which is called as reading the question. All right, let's understand all the pointers. My today's category of question that I'm basically discussing here is called as problem solution category. All right. So we are going to deal with this category. We are going to deal a particular question of this category. And I'm going to basically empirically tell you that how we can finalize or how we can basically deal with almost every question, if at all, the same category, the same strategy would be used everywhere. So fine. So the first step is that you read the question. Clear? That you have already told me, but how much time you need to spend? Just 1 minute, okay? Do not spend over time because reading is not a difficult task. Okay. What is required in reading? There are keywords. That is, you need to understand the keywords. I'll tell you what are the keywords. You also need to identify the category, correct? So let me first of all give you a question on the screen. All of you, please look at the question. Okay, so here I have a question on the screen. The question says, in many countries, a high number of, I'm sorry, it's a typo, it's of, a high number of teenagers are engaged into criminal activity. So this is my subject line, correct? Now the question is discuss why does it happen and what can be done to deal with the problem. Okay. So this is how this problem solution questions are being framed. And that is why this is called as the question framework. Okay. So how the question of this category, which is called as problem solution, is being framed. First, it has got two components. The first component, which is called as the subject line. Clear? Right? And the second component, which is called as the identifier, which is always, which follows the subject line, basically. All right. So what is an identifier? An identifier always has got these kind of keywords like why. I'm again repeating, it's a problem related question. Okay? Problem solution. So in these category, we always have got these keywords such as why does it happen? What are the reasons behind it? What are the causes related to it? Or what do you think are the factors responsible for it? Okay, so whenever we talk about it, this is primarily the keyword. The second statement here is what can be done to deal with the problem? Yeah. So after reading this sentence, can you all tell me that what the sentence tells you? Basically, what we have to write on the subject line? All of you? What is the meaning of this sentence? No? Nobody can tell me? Okay. So the simple meaning that is behind this sentence is that the question is seeking for some solutions, correct? So the first part discuss why does it happen, majorly focuses on causes, and the second part of the identifier majorly focuses on solution, correct? So on this subject line, what I have to do? I have to write on causes and I have to write on solution. Okay. Now let's read the subject line. Okay. Reading the subject line is of course essential. Why essential? Because this is basically the subject on which I have to write my essay, write my whole content. Let's understand what all keywords are there in the subject line. Keywords are basically those words on which the whole content relies. Okay. And it has often been observed that generally keywords get repeated multiple times, around 6 to 7 times in an essay. So always make sure that though there is a necessity of repeating the keywords, but you do not have to do it. Alternatively, you should be ready or equipped with an enriched vocabulary just to ensure that there is no repetition and just to basically mark on a good band. Okay. So what are the keywords of this question? The whole sentence. Can you all please tell me the keywords or the most essential words of the question or the words on which the whole question relies? Very good, Kavya. Teenager, of course. A perfect answer. Anything else, others? Perfect, Anjan. That's wonderful, Akhila. Okay, Akhila has commented one more thing here, which is criminal activity. Yeah. Yes, all of you. So there are primarily two words that are being focused, that are being highlighted here. One is teenager, and the other is criminal activity. Clear? And believe me, the moment you will start writing your whole content, the whole content would rest on only these two words. All right. So what we have done in the whole reading the question or understanding the question, first of all, we have understood the identifier. So in case of problem and solution category, we will have identifiers such as why does it happen? And there are even more synonyms. I'll tell you later. Immediately after the discussion of question framework, I'll tell you everything about it. What can be done to deal with this? It means the solution. Always, when you're dealing with problem solution, you will have these keywords like causes and solution. Once you read this identifier, then you need to read the subject line. Subject line is basically the agenda, the main topic on which your question is based. And in that main topic, you should definitely mark the most important keywords, which are teenager and criminal activity. That's it. Okay. So a small repetition of the same concept that I have recently told you. Yeah. So what is that? In the question, we understand keywords, we are in keywords, causes, that is reason, factors, and why. For effects, we have the words such as outcomes, results, and consequences. See, that's the question that I've recently discussed. There was no such keyword that was existing in the identifier. But believe me, in IELTS, you know, many a time the effect related questions are even asked. So besides giving you causes, they would even be expecting you to write the effects. So if they write this keyword somewhere, if they write, what do you think are the outcomes of it? And you do not write the outcomes, there would be certainly a sort of deduction. So make sure you read your question very carefully. You have to be really cautious about what all content, what all keywords are being mentioned, and accordingly you should generate your content. Right? At last, it was already mentioned in the question that how you can overcome the problem, what can be done to deal with this. So it can be alternatively written as what are the preventions, cures, controls, or how one can stop it. Okay, so I'm sure you must have understood how to read a question. Is that clear, all of you? Am I completely understood so far? That's great. That's great, Anjan. Okay, wonderful. Now I'm moving on to the second stage of this task. Okay, like I'm still considering the same question. I'm not changing the question at all. Okay? But as I've told you that the first thing we do with the question is read the question, and after we complete the reading of the question, then we come on to the second stage, which is called as collection of the points. Collection of the ideas, content, as well as collection of vocabulary. Okay, to which you also refer as lexical resources. Okay? So the total time which you have to invest here is 3 minutes. And how you should basically collect the points. You know that it has got two parts, causes and solution, correct? So before you start writing, you should always collect some causes about it and some solutions, because these are the two areas on which you have to highlight the whole subject, correct? But make sure that you do not have to bombard the examiner with a lot of ideas. Your ideas should be definite, should be limited. There should be brevity in the ideas, but of course, there should be a wonderful explanation, right? That is, if you are writing, okay, Manohar, that's of course the criminal activity. Yeah. All right. Fine. So I'm now discussing the points, how to collect all these pointers here. Okay. The question is still the same, Manohar. So what I was discussing is that my question preliminary rests on these two pointers, which is cause and solution. What you have to do, you have to just collect two causes, not more than that. Clear? Similarly, in order to deal with the problem, you just have to offer two solutions. Fine. So I can understand you must be having brilliant ideas about what are the causes behind it, right? That why teenagers are committing so much of crime, they are involved into criminal activities. I'm sure, because you all are quite familiar with the surroundings, so definitely you would be having a lot of ideas. But for the matter of making it more refined and definite, I have myself, you know, given some points here, right? The primary point that I have written here is what? Parental negligence. Yeah. You all agree with this? Or you have anything that you want to really talk about? You all agree that, juveniles or teenagers, why do they particularly commit a crime? Probably. Yes, Anjan, probably because somewhere or the other they have not received the right parenting. Their parents have been negligent throughout their behavior, or due to being quite indulgent in their own professions, in their own life, they have not given the right kind of nurturing to their youngsters, to their kids, to their offspring. Correct? So primary, we consider parents. Remember in IELTS, there are a lot of questions in which are related to children, which are related to youngsters. Okay? For instance, there's a question called internet. The internet is bothering a lot of children, and TV. Children have started watching television a lot. Even there's a question, no drug abuse. It is becoming a common problem, right? So all the questions, if you carefully observe, these are related to children, yeah, or teenagers, correct? So here, remember, whenever they ask you, there was a reason. So whatever misconduct children do, the primary person to be targeted should always be parents. Okay, because things basically, their learning, their behavior, their attitude, everything is primarily being framed by their family, right, which is the first social circle that they maintain. So definitely they are being ignored somewhere by the family members, and that is why they are seeking some external help, and that is why they are being faced such, they are facing such deleterious results in their life. Correct? So primarily, you can even, just make some pointers. So these are some fixed pointers, fixed words that you can apply everywhere. So if you talk about drug abuse, tell me why does it happen? You can simply say parental negligence. Parental negligence. If you say internet, why children are becoming addicted of internet? You can say parental negligence. If the question is they're watching too much at television, what is the primary concern? You can simply say parental negligence. Fine. So remember, when you prepare one question, basically you are preparing multiple questions. There are myriad of questions that you are covering just by the understanding of one question. And that is why it is completely advisable that you basically do a lot of hard work in every question. Okay? Because indirectly, you are doing multiple questions. Is that clear? Yes, students, all my participants, have you all understood what I've told you right now? Great, Akila. Fine. Now okay one, Anjan, that's good. Now the second thing that is of course related to children, and again, this is one pointer that you can apply everywhere. So I can call it a universal idea, okay? Media influence. Yes. So you can see, nowadays the content that has been presented to children, it is highly violent, yeah, aggressive. There's a lot of anger, rage, inappropriate behavior is being showcased on media, right? So even this is all causing their psychological distortion, right? So this is another prime factor which is responsible for this bad behavior, for this misconduct. Yeah. So just two pointers I'm considering because my purpose is not to provide many approaches. My purpose is just to elaborate them. Well, that is it. If at all, I'll be able to justify these 2 pointers. My task is done. I need not to worry ahead. Yeah. Now the second point. The second thing that was there in the question was about the solution. Yeah. There's this easiest way of dealing with this question. Whatever is the cause, you need to reverse that cause. That is, parents were negligent, make them active. That's it. So, vigilant parenting. Clear? Media was influencing them. Make media more careful. That is, control on media. Okay. So, sometimes if you are in a fix, that what solution do I offer? Because certainly you'll be having a lot of solutions. Even some of the students do suggest, counseling can be a good way. Other speaks that, conducting some workshop, or even other believe that, getting them engaged into some voluntary work. I believe there are, multiple ways of dealing with the solution. But why are you falling in this trap of collecting a lot of things? You understand, you just have to write 300 words. You do not have to write a lot of things, right? You do not have to confuse the examiner. You have to basically simplify your task. You have to get the band. You do not have to lose the band. So if you really want to get the desire, then make sure it should be nicely, wonderfully, and vividly written. That means what? Do not provide or offer a confused approach. Make it the most easiest and the simplest one. That is vigilant parenting and media control. That's it. So I'm not at all going to discuss it later, further because it's of course quite descriptive. In addition to collecting the points, there is one more stage, one more thing that you have to do. Yeah. Let me tell you what is that. That is, I'm just zooming in out for you. That is the collection of words. Okay. So you understand my question was all about crime. And the crime was related to what? Related to teenagers. Okay. So the moment I start writing my answer, definitely I will be repeating crime at least 6 to 7 times. Okay. Similarly, the second word that I'll be repeating would be teenager. So now, in order to deal with the problem, what is required? During this collection stage only, you have to collect even some vocabulary related to this. Okay. So let us now talk about the words. Yeah. So I have just highlighted these words. For teenager, what are the right words? Teenagers can also be referred as adolescent, underage, minor, juvenile, and below 18. Okay, fine. So the moment you start framing your sentence, just be very careful, okay? You do not have to repeat teenager more than once. Otherwise, the ban will be deducted, okay? You would be penalized. Okay? For that, make it sure that you should have an alternative vocabulary. The second word that you would have to repeat many a time, of course, is related to crime. Yeah. So for that, we have got many words such as unethical activity, misdeed, antisocial activity, immoral behavior, or even misconduct. Got it, all of you? Yeah. Fine. So these are the two primary areas on which my essay would rest. So during this time of collection, the points, I will have to primarily focus on collecting those words which would be appropriately written, and even by the time of writing, if you write, for instance, innocent. Okay. So even if you are repeating criminal activity, right? So, or criminal, right? Because generally in crime, these are the commonest words: criminal, innocent, crime. Okay. So you should also be ready with some alternative words for that. For instance, for crime, what are the right words? Okay, all of you, you please speak. I'm not going to speak for all of you. Please tell me, what is the alternative word for crime? Please type it in your chat box. The alternative word for crime? Wrongdoings, absolutely. Anything else? Yes, Manohar, that's wonderful. Or alternative word for criminal? Alternative word for criminal? A criminal can also be called as what? A wrongdoer. So Manohar, right now you have typed wrongdoing, right? A wrongdoer is the one who does a wrongdoing, correct? So you can also call him a wrongdoer, correct? Hmm. Even the criminal can also be called sometime as an accused. Okay. There is a wonderful word which is called as miscreant. Miscreant. Okay. Miscreant is an alternative word for criminal. Okay. It's commonly used, and when you write this word basically in IELTS write up, it looks better. So there are many words like that. For instance, miscreant, accused, culprits, criminals, hooligans, okay, wrongdoers. All right. So basically, what is my intention here of letting you know about this word? Remember, IELTS is not a very scientific one, right? It's just a basic language test. So, what is the approach of dealing with the question? The simplest approach is that they're seeking for a variety. They're seeking for some experimentation from your end, right? The experimentation should be in the form of sentence formation or in the form of words that are being providing you, that you are being providing them. Correct? So make sure while framing your sentences, your every sentence seems to be different from the other, and that easily, you would be able to basically achieve the required score. Now, so once you complete the stage of collection, which is called as 3 minute, then you need to go ahead with the next part, which is called as organization. So this is the third stage. So let us just revise the three stages. Stage one of planning, which is called as reading. What is the second stage, all of you? After reading, what do you do? Tell me. What are we supposed to do after reading? Collection, absolutely, Kavya. So collection. And there are two things that we have to collect. One is the ideas, and the second thing is, of course, the vocabulary. Correct. Once we are done with this collection stage, then we move on to the third and the final stage of planning. It is still the stage of planning, in which you have to spend just 1 minute. What is that? That now start organizing your task. All right. Organization is essential because through the help of organization, basically, you can make out that how what is the flow of the information. You can make out that how one thing is different from other. And the primary and the most important thing in organization is that, remember, paragraphing is the most essential thing. Do not write your essay in bullets. Okay. The whole content should be written in the form of paragraphs. And remember, there should be multiple paragraphs. Okay. So in case of this problem and solution category. What should be the ideal number of paragraphs? Let me tell you. Okay, so we have got this introduction. At last, we have got this conclusion. Okay, so these are mandatory. Mandatory is that what you can not evade from these two paragraphs, correct? So introduction is the first one, conclusion is the last one. And how many words? 30, 40? 30, 40. Here as well, like although I have not written here, but you have to write just 30, 40, not more than that. Reason being that introduction is not a new thing. Even conclusion is nothing new at all. Okay. Introduction is that you're just rewriting the question. You're not providing any new line of thought. You're not providing any cause that you have collected in the collection stage. Why? Because all the pointers, all the ideas that you have collected would fall in body paragraph. All right. Introduction is simply writing the question. That's it. I'll even help you out how to frame an introduction later in the class if we will be left with time, definitely. And then comes the, of course, in this question, effects were not asked. So I'll not be writing any effect related paragraph. But definitely, we were asked to write some solutions. So I'll have to create one paragraph related to solutions. Fine. So if I talk about the organization of this whole essay, there would be 4 paragraphs. The first, which is introduction, wherein 30, 40 paragraphs words should be there. The second, body paragraph 1, wherein we should have causes, but remember the word limit would be different. It is going to be 110 to 120 words. So whenever we have 2 body paragraphs, the word limit should be 110 to 120. But whenever we have got 3 body paragraphs, we should have 70, 80 each. Okay. So for solution again, 110 to 120, because now I'm again repeating the same idea. That is, if you are making 2 body paragraphs, your word limit in each body paragraph should be 110 to 120. Okay. Do not write more than that, even not less than this. Okay. Why? Because when you fall in this range, you are definitely justifying the content. More importantly, that problem of getting under length or over length can be easily avoided. Okay, so following a word limit is always a good concept. At last, summarization. Fine. So once this organization part is over, then we move on to the next step. Okay, which is the steps planning is already over, which was a 5 minute. So definitely we are heading towards the next step, which is called as writing the task. Okay, writing is the simplest thing in the world. Why simple? It is simple because now you know everything about it. You know how to write on it. Clear? And even there are few formats that you can adopt. Okay. So here on the screen, there's a small format that I have provided for the sake of understanding, for the sake of simplifying your challenge of dealing with introduction. What is that? Just listen to me carefully, okay? Nowadays, comma, the issue of subject. Subject is a variant, okay? It would keep varying according to the question, right? For instance, here my subject was teenager crime. So I can write teenager crime. Nowadays, the issue of teenager crime has become ubiquitous. Anybody knows the meaning of ubiquitous? Ubiquitous. Hello. More. Okay. Okay. That's good. Okay. Let me make it more clear. The meaning of ubiquitous is universal. Okay. Fine. So I just created one good word here because I believe that it would help me fetching the good band. So the issue of juvenile crime has become ubiquitous. There are many reasons behind it. However, some effective measures could significantly help to alleviate this concern. Okay. So this is a ready to consume content, okay? Ready to basically use content that you can apply everywhere and that really simplifies your challenge. Okay? So now if I'm changing the subject, clear? Let's say my question is sleeplessness. Sleeplessness is a common issue that people are facing nowadays. This is the reason behind it and the solutions. Clear? So what would be my introduction in this case? I have told you, first of all, you need to find out the synonym of sleeplessness. Can you all please tell me what are the synonyms of sleeplessness? Tell me, what are the substitutes of sleeplessness? Okay. So there's one common word for sleeplessness. I'm sure you must have heard of it. It's insomnia. This question has many a time this question has been asked in IELTS. At least 15 to 20 times this question has been asked in IELTS. So for sleeplessness, and remember, they always repeat the question. So for this sake, it is always important that you keep doing the previous questions well. That would really help you to understand. And you do not know, probably you'll get the same question in the examination. Correct? So always maintain a bank of the words, or maintain a bank of the questions basically. So that just practice those questions. Do not just get distracted by a lot of content on everywhere. Right? Just follow some fixed questions, and believe me, you will get the same questions. Okay? So insomnia is one word that you can write here. Now I'm framing the same introduction for a different question. Nowadays, the issue of insomnia has become ubiquitous. There are many reasons behind it. However, some effective measures could significantly help to alleviate this concern. The meaning of alleviate is to dampen, is to reduce. Okay. So this is one introduction that you can basically put anywhere. The only thing you need to do here is to change your subject. That's it. And you will end up receiving the right introduction. So if at all it is sleeplessness, you need to write insomnia. If at all it is crime, you can write misdeed. So this is how it works. Then you need to create one body paragraph for causes, one for effect, if at all we have to write effect, and the third for solution. And at last comes the conclusion. How to create a conclusion? To reiterate. The meaning of reiterate is to repeat, or to conclude, or to summarize. So basically everything is same, but you always prefer to write a better word. Yeah. The major cause behind subject. Now, what was my subject earlier? It was juvenile crime, but again you have to write it in a different way. The major cause behind the misdeeds conducted by youngsters or minors or underage people are, what was reason one? Parental negligence, and reason two? Media influence. Yeah. It is severely impacting nations. So there was no effect related paragraph, so I would not be writing it. But in case I receive a question wherein I have to put some effect, so definitely I'll have to do something here. Okay. At last, however, the issue can be considerably reduced by how? S1. What was S1? It was vigilant parenting. And S2, controlling the content provided on media channels. And thus, you come up with a wonderful task which has got the right vocabulary, no repetition, the sentences are definite, and there are least chances of error. Okay? Because, when you come with a template, basically, the basic idea is that you understand that you would be doing least grammar error. Okay? And for that's sake, always have this habit of maintaining some templates. Okay? So, like, for example, I generally offer my students some template related to argument, some templates related to discussion questions. And then we keep discussing all the most important questions on that. You do not have to do a lot of things. You just have to practice yourself on those 30 questions. That's it. Or hardly 15 questions sometimes. And you will find that you are now able to handle almost every category of question. Okay, so this is what is required. So believe me, do not get, swayed away by the fear of writing. It is nothing. It's just that it required the right understanding, it required the right approach, and basically a smart work. That's it. Yeah. So this is how you write it. We've already done these stages. At last comes the error checking stage. So there are a few fundamentals, there are a few things, there are a few parameters on which your writing is being checked. More importantly, before submitting your task, basically before making it sure that this is my final task, you have to spend your last 5 minutes wherein what you are going to check. A sort of 5 minute proofreading is required. The primary thing is that, of course, you check your content 2 times. Okay, read the whole essay twice, and while reading there are few things that you have to make out or spot. What are those things? Repetition of vocabulary, Don't do it. Wherever you find that, okay, people is getting repeated, so change it. So what could be the alternative word for people? Tell me, all of you. Alternative word for people. No, I can't get any response as of now. Okay, let me just help you. One word is citizens. Yes, wonderful. Right. So one word is of course citizens. The other word is individual. Yeah. There's one more word which is called as denizens. Okay. Now, if we are becoming specific, we are talking just about working professionals. So we can also call them professionals. Okay. So the approach is to avoid this repetition. That's it. Second, word limit. I have already told you. Yes, public, Kavya, absolutely. Public is the right word that you can use. Then grammar errors should not exist at all. Okay. For grammar error, you know, have the habit whenever you write an essay, you know your weakness, to be honest. No, there is no student in the world who does not know his weakness. But when you overcome that weakness, believe me, that is what is required. Okay, then only you turn out to be a good individual. Correct. So when you know that I do not have the right grammar, right? So start working on it. Grammar does not require you to do an intensive course of English. It just requires to sit for a while, for just an hour. And there are a few fundamentals. There are just 6 fundamentals, honestly telling you. If you know those fundamentals, your whole grammar related to IELTS is covered, and you need and you need nothing apart from that. Okay. And the second thing is spelling. If you believe that you do a lot of error in spelling, start maintaining a chart of spelling, right? Whenever your trainer, your tutor is basically finding out your errors, okay, in terms of spelling. So start maintaining a glossary, right? Start adding those words over there. And whenever you apply those words again, look those words from the glossary that where was the problem, why it was incorrect. Okay. So this is an activity that you have to do every day. Okay. So do not be negligent about it. Punctuation marks, that is the usage of comma. I've told you grammar is nothing. Okay. Grammar is just about spending 1 hour. In 1 hour, you'll be absolutely clear with all the fundamentals of grammar. Okay. So generally, how I teach my student, I generally, conduct one basic class of grammar in which the primary thing is that I get to understand what their weaknesses are. And in that, I just teach them 6 fundamentals, 6 or hardly 7 fundamentals. And the moment they start applying, then definitely they get all the things clear. They do not struggle with that problem of grammar. So grammar does involve some understanding of punctuation, that where to put commas, right? Even the understanding of linking words, which you call as connectors, are also essential because these connectors or linking words definitely improvise or improve the relative quality of the task. Fine. So definitely it is another essential trait. So abbreviations, no, not at all. Like I've seen a lot of people, they generally write this GOVT, government as GOVT. This is an absolute wrong thing. Do not do it, okay? The next thing is informal language. There are a lot of words which are completely counted as informal. And the primary word is, of course, kids. Yeah. Many of you write kids in your essay. Believe me, essay is a complete formal task. You can speak kids, okay? Because speaking can be called as informal sometimes, but writing kids is a complete anomaly, right? You do not have to do it because kids is an informal word. Do not write extreme tones. That is, do not write something that is completely associated with everybody, right? If you talk about this question, the question was that, you know, it has been seen that a lot of a lot of youngsters are engaged into criminal activity. So here, do they mean everybody is engaged into criminal activity? Tell me. Was it written in the question that every youngster is a criminal? No, definitely not. it was clearly mentioned that not everybody is involved, rather just few people are involved. Okay, so even the moment when we are writing our task, we do not have to basically generalize our statement. When we are writing everybody is criminal, it's a wrong sentence. We should write the right word. And what are those? That is, most people are becoming criminal, or few people are getting engaged into unethical activity, or some of them, correct? So these are the right word to be used. Personally, okay, this is just the best thing that I would want to speak on. What personally here? It means if you see any question based on IELTS, there's clearly this word written called as people are doing this, or kids are doing it. Okay, or women are doing it. Yeah, they never write you are doing it or I'm doing it. Have you ever seen any such question where it's written I'm doing it or it's written you are doing it? Tell me. Anybody has ever seen such a question writing? No, definitely not. Why? Because they are not expecting any personal response from you, right? They are clearly showing that my question belongs to people around. They are not showing that my question belongs to my own, myself. No, they're not asking that. See, I'm just talking about you. You have to tell me about yourself, your country. No. So you do not have to write anything personally here. That is, avoid the usage of words such as I, we, or you. Another most important thing, I've seen a lot of my students what they generally do when they start writing an essay. No, they put some personal example. For instance, my country, India. Yeah. Remember, I've told many a time that personalization should never be accepted, should never be done, right? So here, instead of writing what you should do, ideally you should write in most of the Asian nations or in few of the developing countries. Yeah? So this is the right way of putting your thing. Fine. So I'm done everything in detail. There are few most important questions that I'm writing here. Believe me, you never even know that you would come across the same question. So just have a look on all the questions, but believe me, just don't not having just a look would help. A clear understanding of the words, a detailed and vivid description about everything, a wonderful collection of vocabulary, and the right ideas would only help you to fetch the right answer. Correct? So, obesity, a very common question. It is a health related question. Stress, another health related question. Sleeplessness, another health related question. Pollution, environment related question. Then we have a bicycle, transportation related question. It's lifestyle related, or you also call it society related question. Then it's beauty related, basically lifestyle related question. Fine. So, can you see all the question have got a different topic, different category. One is related to society, the other is related to lifestyle, one is related to environment, then health related. See, this is what you have to do. I generally discourage students to write one category all the time. Like, do not just write health, health every time. Because if at all you'll be writing health once, you can understand, you would be repeating that. You would be writing all the words in just one essay. So if you're again writing another health related question, you're wasting your time. Why are you doing it? It's better you write an essay on environment. Get an understanding about that. Get familiar with the right vocabulary. Okay? Agree, students? Do you all agree with me? Yes, fine. So that is the approach of dealing with a question. That is what you should always work on different category question. And believe me, there's another advantage of dealing in different question. That is, you even tend to enhance your speaking skills this way. Okay. So how one can enhance speaking, although the session was completely devoted to writing, but I can't resist myself sharing something about even speaking. So speaking is another area that can be daunting sometimes, but how can you work on that? How can you improve that? Simple. When you're writing, put the best effort. Collect the different words on every category. And remember, just not limit yourself to writing. Start working on the same category question which are related to speaking. For instance, today we have done questions related to juvenile crime. There are a lot of questions which are related to speaking in crime. There is a list of questions. Basically, probably in the future, I'll conduct the speaking crime related questions. So you'll come across that these are the questions which are related to crime. And since you have understood most of the important words related to crime, now is the time that you should now applying all those learned words in the speaking module. And this is how you would start finding that slowly, gradually, you are even improving yourself in terms of speaking. Got it? And even speaking has got the same trait. That is, they always repeat the question. So that is the best thing about IELTS that you do not have to basically struggle with any novel idea, right? Everything is same. You just have to go with the same concept. That's it. Okay. So now, so this is it. I believe I have talked a lot about it, but of course, I need to address some of the questions that must be coming your way, all of you. If there's something that you want to ask, please ask me.
Uh,
Kavya, it would, yes.
Yes. So, Nisha, first of all, thank you so much for that informative session. I think all of them had a lot of key takeaways from the session that you had just now. So, thank you so much for that, first of all. And yes, so as you mentioned, if there's any questions that you guys want to ask, so you can go ahead and do that for now.
Yes, students, I would highly welcome your responses. If at all you want to ask any question, please do that. Okay, Kavya, I can see that probably you're struggling with listening. That is why probably you are asking me this question related to listening. But honestly, as you've said, even this lecture was quite intensive, okay? Even speaking is one module which is really intensive. Merely telling you 5 or 6 tips on listening would not work. It really require a dedicated practice, to be honest, okay? So definitely, in the future, I'll be sharing some tips, but a complete 1 hour is required. Wherein, besides sharing the tips, I will also be practicing the questions with you because that only would give you the real approach of dealing with that. Otherwise, just saying these 4 or 5 pointers would not be the right idea. Clear? Anybody else want to ask anything else?
Yes, we'll keep it open for just 2 more minutes and then we can wind up. So, any questions? Do ask right now. All right. All right. So, I hope most of your questions were answered in the session itself. So, as we've reached to the end of the session, I'd like to inform you that the session has been recorded and it will be available on UrbanPro's YouTube channel. And to connect with our speaker, you can click on the link shared in the chat box. I will share it once again so that it is easy for you to connect with Ms. Nisha. So, yes, so the link is right there in the chat box. And also to get regular updates on interactive live masterclasses and informative lesson videos, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. And before we take a leave, I'd like to thank our speaker, Ms. Nisha, for investing her valuable time here and giving us this wonderful session. Thank you so much. And also for all the audience who
Thank you,
interacted.
Sanjana.
Thank you so much, Nisha. Thank you, everyone. Stay
Thank you.
tuned.
Thank you so much, all of you. Bye and take care.